genius. As a parent, I need to invest my time, even if it is 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It will make a vast difference, but it is required from my end. I cannot be 100% dependent on preschools or daycares to take care of that aspect.
No, because see, the question is, who cares for your child more? You. Who has the best interest at heart? You. Who loves your child more than anybody else in the world? It's you. So what you can do, and daycare and schools, they have so many kids to take care of. They cannot give that one-to-one attention that you give.
How parents can build a positive social, emotional environment for a kid.
So talking about social emotional development, right? That's one of the least. It's like that nobody is that has the worst relationship with the parents and children. Like it's ignored.
When childs try to speak, and sometimes out of frustration, parents shut them down. And when they are new to the language, they love talking, they want to say things and all those things. But maybe due to the busy life, stress or something else, parents shut them down. Does this impair language and speech development in kids in any?
Definitely. Because see, children are highly curious. And because the world is new, everything is new, and their brain is trying to make sense of everything. And so they're in that phase where they're constantly learning. We call it the subconscious learning phase, right? They are right brain dominant and they're in the record mode. They're literally recording, making sense of things and all of those things.
So what are the common actions of parents which build the negative association between learning?
The one thing is forcing kids to learn. It is like you want your child to learn. So you just somehow, you tell yourself, I'll somehow make my child to learn. Do this. You cannot make any child do anything against their wish. We all know that. Now, big kids, they don't have a choice. They would whine, they would crib, and then still come and sit down. Especially little kids, they'll drive you nuts. You cannot just use force. Again, understanding how the child naturally learns is in a playful way.
What happens if we use the baby, if we simplify the language for a kid, what happens in that case?
You are just limiting language development in your child.
What parents can do to develop those fine motor or gross motor skills in their kids in the early years?
Let them be outdoor. And then go crazy.
And when this speech and language development is going on, and when we are talking and exposing to different languages, the child is able to build a lot of vocabulary. But at the same time, this child is able to also move to the stage of meaning making. How, as a parent, one can actually build that understanding for themselves that their kid is also genius. And if I can provide the right environment, right experiences to the kid, then my child can also do wonders, which I expect them to do it.
Definitely. I think it all begins with awareness. See, I always give this example to the parents and the teachers I work with. When you become a parent, or like, let's say that parenting is like a job, literally like a job. It's a role that you take up. But if you take any other job out there in the world, it has some sort of training whatsoever. Be it a teacher, be it a IT professional, be it a professor, be it a janitor, any sort of job has some sort of training. But parenting, I feel, is one of the most important jobs out there because it requires that you raise another human being. Yeah. Well, what sort of training do we have? Like, how many people understand what are the different aspects of development in a child? They have no clue.
Yeah.
Why is the child behaving this way? How many parents do you think have understanding about why children behave this way? Like, I'm not talking about others. Let me talk about myself. When I began this journey, I had no clue. I was clueless in this journey. But then I chose to learn and grow and evolve in this journey. And that really helps me help others right now. But most of us, we begin the journey clueless. When we are not aware, what can we do, right? We feel overwhelmed. We feel frustrated. We make poor choices. And we feel guilty too as a parent because what is our intention? We want to give the best to the child, right? We want our children to be successful and happy and all of this. But when we don't have the awareness as to how the brain develops, what is the potential of the brain? Why is my child behaving this way? What are the things that's needed? We cannot do much. I think it all has to begin with awareness, learning about the child, learning about our roles and responsibilities as a parent, right? And then learning what are we supposed to do to nurture those God-given talents and abilities that babies are born with. And instead of just trying to fit into, the traditional way of living. I think that is That is what I my take on things.
Yeah, very well said. The awareness is really important in parenting. But another question that arises on this thing of about awareness, how parents can actually build awareness about child development and the developmental domains, because there is like lots of information available on internet,
Yes.
and if we see like country wise, the things vary.
Definitely, definitely. That that is a gap I think that we should be meeting. As even before a parent could give birth, right? I think these sort of training has to happen in hospitals or in some sort of facilities out there, but it's not there. So parents, what they do is they go online to get information, especially in this day and age. And as you just rightly mentioned, there is way too much information, and that can only confuse a parent, overwhelm a parent, and parents just don't know what else to do, where to begin,
Yeah.
where to start. But it is important they find a mentor or a coach who can guide them in that process, I feel, who can help them understand as to how the brain develops, why it is crucial during the first few years, and what is that they can do. And I also need to add one more point here. See, when you talk about brain development, the common way people look at things is just activities. It's just one piece of the puzzle. There are many other things that have a huge impact on a child's brain development, like the parent's own emotional well being. And as I mentioned, it's the connection between the child. So, those are the things that parents also need to be aware of. And I think, you know, there are other programs that they need to find, but it is challenging, as you just mentioned, because there are too many options out there. But if they can find one program and then stick with it, a program that helps them understand all these aspects and guides them, I think that is something that they need to look at.
Hmm. Got it. But keeping this in mind, the lots of information, the information overload, but at the same time, parents, I feel parents have this thinking that raising a kid is a project for them, and they want to raise in their own way based on their own experiences and reflections of their own life, and they want to, I think parents are more reluctant to listen to other person, like how can you tell me to raise my kid? I can very
Yeah.
well do that. I have seen like people around me who have raised kids. I have my mom and dad doing this, so I can do it very conveniently. But
Yes.
here, what parents need to understand, what is that one thing that they should understand, that this parenting does not work like this way, the way they are thinking as a project and they can do themselves. What is the missing piece here?
Okay. Let me um, come back to what you were saying. Well, if you really look at it from afar, parenting is more or less like a project. It's an 18-year project. And like the, whatever I'm doing right now, it is called the Genius, our community's name is Genius Nurturer Community. Every parent has that nurturing genius within them. It is not about the child as such, it's also about the parent. They have that innate wisdom within. But it is important they also become aware of what is the reality, right? Like, it is not that, parents do not know how to raise a child. They have that innate nurturing genius within them. See, for instance, I can raise my child, or I am the genius nurturer to my child, and no one else can take up that place because I love my child so much. I would take a bullet for my child. And I assume you would do the same thing for your child. And another parent would do the same thing for their child. So that sets them apart from everyone else. So they can raise their child. They have that wisdom within them to raise their child to the fullest potential. But it is also important to learn what is out there. We're living in a day and age which is completely different from how we were raised, right? Technology did not exist back then. So we could not use the same information to raise the child in this 21st century, right? When, it is taken over by AI. Everything is different. We were not glued to phones and laptops growing up. But Children right now, they're just glued to laptops and phones right now, and parents are like clueless as to what to do. And that is affecting children too. So I think the latest research is something that parents should be aware of. And also, back in our days, I mentioned earlier, where in order to discipline a child, we reached out to punishing a child. We equated that to pain. But if you inflict pain, I mean, you cannot teach a child, you cannot help a child behave well, you cannot use fear to help a child do anything. So that was an outdated information back then. Using the same piece of information in the 21st century will not work. It will do more damage than good. So I think we need to upgrade ourselves, because we know about the brain so much in the past 2 decades compared to all of history. I'm sure you would agree too. We've come a long way.
Yes.
When we were growing up, it was thought that some children were smart, the other children were dumb. But we know when you have a growth mindset right now, it doesn't matter, what kind of intelligence you have. You can always rise to that level. I think those ideologies, those concepts is something that we need to learn as parents and as teachers, right? So when we become aware, and then when we work on ourselves, when we have the right tools and support, I think we can tap into that inner genius within us and raise it and help who has the power to tap into our child's genius.
Yes, totally makes sense to me, like what you are saying. So I also want to connect like what you have just said and also to the things which you have said before. So
Okay.
there is a inner self in every parent which is guiding them like how to raise the kids. But at the same time, it is important to uh, bridge inner self with the outer world with respect to the latest developments and the developments in sciences which we know about child development, because the inner self might be guided by the past experiences which they have seen or experienced, but at the same time there are a lot of things which they have not seen and experienced. But if parents took that step to build that sort of awareness in them, then it can help them to nurture a kid to their highest potential.
Yes.
And also, as you say, that every child is a genius. So if we just listen to the inner self, can we say that it might help to nurture a kid in a certain way, but it might not help the child to reach their best of the potential, which every child can.
Say that one more time.
Yes. So if we nurture a kid through just our inner self, the guidance which we already have in ourselves, without upgrading ourselves, child will still be nurtured, but they might not be able to reach their development potential, which they have since the time they're born.
Yeah, because when we don't know much, we cannot do much, right? Like if parents don't know what are the different aspects of development and how to nurture the different aspects of development, like what can they do? They would just reach out to the repository, like the knowledge that they already have based on how parents treated them, how teachers treated them, and then they would make their decisions based on that. It all happens unconsciously. It is not that we wake up that morning and then think of, oh, how am I supposed to raise my kid? No, it happens automatically. We function, and they say 95% of who we are is from a subconscious mind. We don't think about it consciously. So the question is, when most of which is unconscious, right? Our choices are unconscious. How effective would that be? You're not even aware that you're making those choices in life. So how effective would that be? So I think we need to make those conscious learning and decisions so we can consciously raise a child, purposefully raise a child.
And if a parent, you're just said the two words, conscious and subconscious parenting, in a way, if parent is remaining more working more at the subconscious level only, then if I want to make understand the parent that what mistake they are making in this way, what will you suggest to such parents? not taking that conscious choices of learning, but just moving ahead with the subconscious choices only.
Again, can you make someone go from being subconscious, operating from a subconscious mode to a conscious mode? Well, we cannot do that. It has to happen from within. We can give that information, hoping that eventually something will click within and they would raise an awareness. Awareness is everything. When that awareness happens within, I think the parent will automatically would want to learn more about it, would want to upgrade themselves, would learn the skills, would learn the tools, would learn the methods to communicate to the child properly. But that has to happen from within. Like people like you and me, we can give that information, hoping that it would create awareness. But that awareness has to happen from within, right?
Totally. So now let's try to understand like what is happening in the child's brain when they are growing since the time they are born. I want to understand what is happening inside the brain, why it is so important to be aware of that and nurture that brain at the same time.
Okay. So let's talk about right from birth, right? Let me give you an example here. So when a child is born, the child has a brain, right? Even though it is 25% the size of the adult brain, the child has a brain. But just the physical brain is not enough, right? Think of it as like a computer. A computer has a hardware and a software. So when you go get a laptop or a computer from the store, you just get the hardware of the computer. But only with the hardware, you cannot do much. It needs software, right? So the physical brain with all the neurons in it, even though they are born with more neurons than you and me, it is of no use. It needs software. And what is the software? The software is the experience. And research says that 80% of what we know right now is learned during our early years. Right? When did we learn to walk? When did we learn our mother tongue? When did we learn basic information about the world around? It's even before we started school. Right? So whatever we learn in school is just a fraction of what we learned during the first few years. We learned how to balance, coordinate. Like those are complex skills. A baby is born helpless. So experience literally build the brain. That neural, I just mentioned that babies are born with more neurons than you and me. But having just the neurons is of no use. It has to fire and connect with each other. So every time they have the experience, information goes in about the world, and then that neural networks are formed. And that is how the brain becomes efficient. So the first 6 years, things are really critical because the foundation is laid. Everything for learning, for behavior, for health, the foundation is being laid. And we also have something called the sensitive period or the critical period. That development has to happen during the during that time. If not, there would be, delays and challenges later on. The child would face challenges later on, like speech and language development. If you take a look at the speech and language development chart, the development is at its peak during the first year of life, when an infant hasn't even uttered a word. So if there is a delay in the third year, then we think there is an issue. But it has to have happened, that input has to have happened during the first year of life because it is at its peak. Not only speech and language development, but cognitive development, motor development. The more opportunities you give a baby to move their body, the sooner they hit their motor milestones. They'll crawl, they'll stand up, they'll walk. If that opportunity is not given, chances are there'll be a delay. And I always like to, tell this, Mother Nature has pre-programmed babies. That is why we have milestones, right? Like we see most babies starting to say their first words when they're around 12 months of age. We see most babies starting to take their first steps around 1 year of age, right? So they are pre-programmed by Mother Nature. But it is important that we also give them the opportunity to have that experience. Nurturing is important, not just nature. Nature has given everything to to all babies, most babies, 98% of babies, unless there is, the baby is born with some sort of challenges. Most babies have, nature has blessed those babies with incredible, unlimited potential. But that nurturing has to be given. So they grow up, optimally, or even accelerate development during the early years. So if that nurturing is not given, if that environment is not given, chances are there'll be a delay. If a baby is sitting there watching TV for like hours, let's say a 1-year-old is sitting and watching TV, even if it's an educational content, you would say issues with behavior. There would be, speech and language development issues like delays. There would be ADHD or autism. All of these is interlinked. Why? Because during the first few years of life, development is so important, and babies have to be given the opportunity to explore the world around through their 5 senses, should be interacting with other human beings in their life. But if a child is just sitting there watching TV, even though their child is born normal by all medical standards, you would witness a delay. You would see behavior issues, which we can avoid when parents know the right thing, when we have the tools in place, when they have the support. I think we can not only help children, help support children, a child's development, but also accelerate their development as well. Because if because of that experience, if there is a delay in development, well, the opposite is also true. You can accelerate development.
So the thing basically you said here is, I just want to abridge the content, is like brain is full of neurons, and they need connection inside the child's brain, and connection only comes if the experiences are provided to them. And those experiences could be good experiences and the bad experiences. Whatever experiences child will get, that's how the brain will develop and then respond as the child grows into teenager or as an adult.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. Absolutely.
So when you say that there is a critical period and a sensitive period, like what is the difference between these two periods, and when does this exist in the whole 0 to 6 age period, or it is a specific periods when we are talking about?
See, again, coming back to the different areas of development, let's take, for example, speech and language development, right? The first 2 years is so critical. A child has to be given opportunities to engage with the language that's spoken around, because that is the means through which the child can understand the world around them. Because when the child is born, everything is new. The child is new to the world, does not know the language, does not know anything, and has to get up to speed with learning. So if nobody is talking to the child, if nobody is, engaging with the child, maybe the child is fed really well, put to sleep, but nobody is talking. Where in the world will the child get that information to understand the world? That critical, that critical period is gone. And post that, let's say that that's how it's happening until the child is 4 years or 3 years old. And now the parent would notice a delay. Oh, my child is not speaking, and would be very concerned. And then they maybe take them to the doctor. But let's say that the child is not still getting the proper help needed, okay? The child is 5 years old. And see, these areas of development are interlinked. One affects the other. Okay. So if speech and language development, you would see cognitive delay. You would see delay in social and emotional well-being, because a child would be very frustrated when he or she cannot communicate how they feel or what they need. That is a frustrating experience for the child. So everything is affected. And it might take, a lot of years before the child could, until the child gets the proper support or early intervention is not there. It might, the child will have those sort of challenges throughout life. So that is why they say early intervention is very, very essential. If that support is not given and that critical period is gone, chances are the child would have to live with it for most of their lifetime. So, yeah. So this is just one example.
Yeah, but so just for my own understanding, so critical period will mean something which child needs to reach by as per the developmental milestone charts. And if they surpass that, then it is like it is the critical period is passed, and particular intervention, if not done, then it will affect the kid in some sort of delays, and proper maybe workshops, therapies might be required to work on those things.
Yes, yes.
Got it. Okay, so there is so much right now, like in terms of what's happening in with child, and as you said that all the domains are connected to each other. So
Yeah.
first of all, let's try to break it up for the audience. Like, what are these domains, which you have already spoken about, name them, but let's list them. What are these domains and how they are interconnected to each other?
Okay. There are many domains of development, but there are 6 major areas of development. Okay. So one is the speech and language development that we just spoke about. The other is motor development, which is the development of the muscles and bones. Like we have fine motor development and gross motor development. Gross motor is the development of the bigger muscle groups in our body, like in our neck, back, torso. Fine motor development is the development of the fine, smaller muscle groups, like in our hand and fingers, that would help a child button up their shirt, write, and all of those things. And we have sensory development. Again, development of the 5 senses. The reason why this is so critical is the 5 senses are the 5 pathways through which we take in information about the world to the brain. So, that is one aspect of development. The other one is cognitive development. How we learn, how we process information, how we understand the world. So, and the other thing is social development. We are social beings. We need to form friendships and relationships. So developing in that area is very critical, right? And emotional development. Again, we are emotional beings. It is important that we learn about emotions and learn how we can manage it, and also understand what the other person is going through. So that is another aspect of development. So those are the major areas of development.
Okay, and just
each one is linked with one another.
yeah, I'll try to understand that. Just give me a second. But I also want to clarify, the physical development of a kid is also a part of a motor development only, or it's a separate domain?
Motor development is physical development.
Okay, physical development and motor development is same.
Yeah.
So now let's start with speech and language development only. Now, as a parent, if I want to know, like, what should I be doing with a kid in the early years of their life, especially 0 to 6, and what I should not be doing with a kid so that they have optimal speech and language development experiences around them?
Okay. There are many things that you can do, but here are maybe few tips. Talk to your child a lot. That is a common thing that you would hear. But how you talk matters so much. Okay. Oftentimes in the process of just talking, we just talk so much to the child. But communication is both ways, right? So when we talk, it is important to give our newborns, our infants and toddlers opportunity to communicate back to us, even though they might not have language yet. So how can you do that? Right? There is a beautiful video on YouTube. Maybe after this call, whoever is watching can go and watch. It's called Serve and Return Interaction by Harvard University, right? So there is a way to talk, meaning when you talk, pause and give that opportunity for your child to respond. And even newborns can respond to you by cooing, by smiling, by moving their body. So that is one thing that you can do. And you don't need special tools, right? Like talk. And when you talk, pause and wait for your child to respond to you. The other thing is always make eye contact. Get down to your child's level. And because it's not just about hearing the word, but also looking at your expression, looking at how your mouth is moving. Because that's going to help them with articulating the word right. That is going to help them mirror that expression and make that same facial expression when they are using those words. So get down to their level. And, oftentimes we use baby language while talking to kids. We simplify language. You don't have to do that at all.
Okay.
Unlike us, Children are called linguistic geniuses for a reason, because they can learn not just one language but multiple languages if they are being if they are given that opportunity during the first few years of life, right? Like if you and I had to learn a new language, it might take like maybe 10 years, but even then we would not sound like a native speaker. But babies and young children, right, if they are raised in a bilingual family where two languages are being spoken, they would easily master those two languages, right? So it is important that you don't simplify or do baby talk, but use the right word and dare to use big words. Because we, with our limited mindset, we would skip those big words. Like, for instance, if we come across a word like, Tyrannosaurus Rex, I'm just giving an example, right? Oh, this name sounds complex. I'm not going to learn this word. Maybe I'll go with the word cat because it's simple. That is how we, because of all our conditioning that happened in school, we categorize words as, easy word and difficult word. But for a child, for especially babies under 3, they don't have that, they cannot categorize. They don't have that limited mindset yet. And so they learn both the words the same way. Their brain processes it the same way. So use big words. The more words your child hears, the better for them. The easier it is for them to learn the language. So those are the 3 tips I would say.
Okay. So one was like talk to the kid, and you told us that serve and return is the process while talking to the kid. So pause, listen, talk. Then be at the child level. Second tip.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the third tip? Don't do the baby talk.
Yes. Use big words. Use real words.
What happens if we use the baby if we simplify the language for the kid? What happens in that case?
You're just limiting language development in your child. Yeah. When your child is capable of learning languages way more than you, why are you just pulling your baby down, right? When your child is capable of learning big words like this, why are you simplifying it? Why are you not giving that opportunity? And we all know that anything in this world begins with language and words. Like if we know a word, we can understand the word. We can learn more about that particular topic. So word is the foundation of all new learning, right? For instance, if I don't know, what can I say? If I don't know the word cat, well, cat does not exist in my world. If I don't know the word photosynthesis, well, photosynthesis doesn't exist in my world. It might be out in the world, but it doesn't exist in my world. I don't know about it. So I cannot understand anything that is related to photosynthesis. But if a child knows about photosynthesis, well, now, when the child is 5 years old, 4 years old, the child has the opportunity to understand about how it happens, why it happens, how it benefits the plant, and how it, eventually helps us too. So that is complex learning, advanced learning, and that is feasible with that foundational word.
And at the same time, as you said, that kids can learn multiple languages. So let's say one parent is speaking English and other parent is speaking, let's say, Hindi. So it is very like normal for a kid to adapt to both the languages. He or she will not get confused. Like one parent, mama is talking in X language and papa is talking in Z language. So it is okay for a kid.
It is. I mean, that's the common myth that people have. If you speak lot of languages, it's going to confuse the child. Well, it's so not true. That is not what research says. If a dad speaks, let's say, Hindi and the mom speaks English, that language is pertaining to that parent, right? So the child will know how to discern between those two languages spoken by two different caregivers in their life. So it is okay. But in order for the child to learn that particular language and master it, it has to be spoken at least more than 25%. So even you can, mix up that language. For instance, if the mom chooses to speak English and maybe Marathi, right? It is okay. But it is important that she, if she wants the child to learn both the languages, well, she needs to use both the languages more than 25% of the time. Like, if she speaks English maybe 80% of the time and speaks 20% of the time Marathi, chances that the child might not be exposed to enough words to speak. Might still benefit from it, but by not have enough words to opportunities to practice the word or enough words to understand that particular language.
Got it. And when this speech and language development is going on, and when we are talking and exposing to different languages, so child is able to build a lot of vocabulary. But at the same time, is child is able to also move to the stage of meaning making?
Okay. So let me rephrase what you just asked me, just so I understand better. So you're asking me, when we are speaking, a child is able to understand, get the vocabulary. But what about constructing sentences or extracting meaning? Is that
Correct.
Is that your question?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So when we are talking in real life scenarios, right? Like, for instance, maybe we want the child to get a cup of water to the child. Or maybe when we are playing, we are teaching the child how to build blocks. So, of course, the child is learning language with respect to real life experience. So the child would be able to comprehend better, because children learn the best through everyday experience. If we place the child and just teach them sentence structure or just words, chances of them not understanding is high. But when in real life scenarios, like I'm giving you, when I'm giving a cup of water to the child and I'm using that sentence to the child, well, the child is able to understand that this particular activity means this. So the child learns words, the child is able to comprehend, which is understand, and the child is able to understand the sentence structure as well, because it is placed in real life situation.
So does that mean if as a parent, I am including my child into the daily activities at home and speaking about those activities in front of kids, then a child will be able to make meaning out of it and will learn about those things and able to use it in future when they are doing that.
Yes. But we also need to be encouraging them to use words. See, receptive language is one, that is understanding language is one, but giving that opportunity for the child to talk is another. Giving that opportunity to express. And that is why I mentioned about servant return interaction right at the beginning, because communication goes both ways. See, some children might be able to understand a particular language, but because they might not have been given opportunity to use the language, their expressive language might not be like really good, right? They might, even though they can understand everything, they might not know how to form sentences. They might not be able to know how to, be fluent in that language. They might struggle in those areas. So it's important we also give them the opportunity. For instance, for little kids, when we give a particular thing because they ask, let's say, a snack, and we are giving a snack to them, if they just say snack, it is important that we frame that sentence for them, we model it, and we encourage them to repeat it after us. So the children learn the best by observing, by modeling. So if they say, let's say, water, you frame that sentence for the child. Can I have a cup of water, please? And you frame the sentence and you encourage the child to repeat it after you. Yeah. And so they have the opportunity to express that language, use that language. And eventually they get better at it, because our brain, the often it does something, it gets better at it, obviously. That's the end result, right? So the more they use the language, because they're modeling it from you, they get better at the language.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Encouragement part is I think a very important aspect, because as a parent, I think we say things to them, but forget to encourage them to repeat after us.
Yeah.
This is a very important thing you mentioned. Thank you for saying that. At the same time, in the speech and learning development only, what are the common mistakes which parent makes, which inhibits child speech and language development in these early years?
Yeah, especially in this day and age. I mean, I can also talk from my perspective, because apart from an educator, I'm also a parent, right? I know how important whatever I've shared with you is, but in real life situation, it can be challenging, because sometimes compared to how we grew up, in this day and age, both parents are working and we're living in a nuclear setup. And we have social media to distract us. And so the interaction between parent and the child has drastically come down, right? Like if a child is asking something, let's take the same example, water, right? We'll just get that water, give it to the child, not saying anything. That opportunity is missed. When you could have used words at that particular situation where the child would have learned like maybe 10 words or how to construct sentences during that time. But because we don't interact, because our mind is like, at work or thinking about something else, we are just scrolling through social media, we're missing that opportunity, those simple experiences where we can use that language mindfully with children, right? So that is a major miss from parents, especially in this day and age, that those little things that we can do every day, if we can mindfully choose to do it, I think that is all that's required. We don't have to do anything new, or it is just a reminder that if we are a bit more mindful and use words, model it, encourage them to repeat, I think that's all needed.
So, as you said, that using technology constantly by parents and missing those small moments to encourage speaking and language, building language in the kids is one of the mistake which parents are doing nowadays. And I have also seen that when childs try to speak, and sometimes out of frustration, parents shut them down. And when they are new to the language, they love talking, they want to say things and all those things. But maybe due to the busy life, stress, or something else, parents shut them down. Does this impair language and speech development in kids in any way?
Definitely. Because, see, children are highly curious. And because the world is new, everything is new, and their brain is trying to make sense of everything. And so they're in that phase where they're constantly learning. We call it the subconscious learning phase, right? They are right brain dominant and they're in the record mode. They're literally recording, making sense of things and all of those things. And so obviously they'll run to the caregiver to help them make sense of things even better. And, we cannot blame it on the parents, because they are busy. They have to juggle between work and life. And when they are busy, or it is not just work and life, but sometimes when we are in social media too, when we are scrolling through, there is a research I read the other day in an article where it shows that parents, especially when they are on social media, when they're on their phone, chances of them ending is more. That frustration is more. They elect their child when their child is asking them something. And when you continue to do that, the child literally shuts down, because the child will associate, hey, if I'm going to ask something to my mom is going to elect me, but I might as well go and play by myself. Or in another scenario, that would increase. Child needs that attention. That is a basic requirement of the brain to figure out the world around. And so the child will constantly come and pester the parent even more. And now that is going to go as a snowball effect in a negative way. The child would pester more, the mother would get frustrated, and after ending, the parent would feel guilty, and the child would again come back. It would be more. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, it has to be awareness first. We have to be aware of what we are doing, because most of which is unconscious behavior. So we should be first aware of our behavior, like this is what we are doing, and also understand why your child is doing that way and how we can talk, especially like kids 5 and up. We can still welcome that question, but tell them that you can answer later. And most children would just go away and do their work. They need that acknowledgement, but little children, especially like 2 years and 3 years old, again, they are highly creative and imaginative. Children are highly creative and imaginative. So it is important that we teach them how to engage themselves independently, like independent play, right? 4 years, 5 years. And we can welcome that question and encourage them to go and play while we get back with the answers, if we are truly busy there.
But it is important that parent is coming back with the answer if they have told. right?
Yes. Like if a child is like 5 and up, maybe we can have put them a book. I used to do that to my son because every child is curious. They have, non-stop questions. And when you're working, he would come and ask me. So I gave him a piece of book where he can, at least write that word down. And he has a book of note of questions. And later we both sit and try to get answers. There are many questions that I myself did not know answers for. Because the questions that children ask, right? They are just, if you really look at it, okay, from outside, it can be annoying. But if you really peel the surface, it is just mind blowing how they are able to look at the environment in that unique way. So the questions are genius questions, but it's just that, we might not have the time at that point to give it to them. Or we have to figure out a way how we can get back to them because we need that curiosity. As I already mentioned, why should we even do it? We need to be very clear with the why. Uh, and the why is we want the best for our children. We want our children to be successful and happy. So if you're clear with the why, I think you would come back to the child. You would encourage that question. And we need to constantly remind ourselves why, what is the priority in this journey, right? And I think every parent wants the best for their child. It is just that we get sidetracked by all these things. We forget our why, and we just go on autopilot. We just do based on our unconscious things. But when we constantly remind ourselves, I think we'll find the time to answer those questions.
So yes, yeah, like one important thing I take away from this conversation is like acknowledgement. Child needs your acknowledgement. It is not necessary they need your full response at that moment. As a parent, I am aware, I am acknowledging my child. It is sufficient for the child. So if
Yes.
I have built that understanding, then yes, I am towards the positive parenting. I am going towards the positive parenting.
Yes. Like, just welcome that question. You can say that's a brilliant question. I think that would reduce that, intensity of coming back at that point, like expecting that answer, that acknowledgement. I think that is important. That's a brilliant question. Maybe mama is working right now. I'll come back to you later. If we could just frame it instead of saying, no, don't disturb me, just get away. I think that would do so much good than, harm the child.
Yeah. So yeah, very important things we have shared about speech and language. Now, if I want to move to the cognitive development of a kid in these early years, like first of all, in a simple language, what is cognitive development and why it is important, and how parent can actually contribute towards the cognitive development in the kids through their own actions.
Okay, cognitive development is the ability to understand and process information about the world around. To put it very simply, and there are different facets too, like memory. There are different kinds of memory. There are different things, but to keep it really simple right now, um, helping the child learn from the environment. I think that is more than enough, especially during the early years, because everything is in the environment. Be it reading, be it math, be it science, everything is all around us. If we can just learn those simple tricks and techniques to encourage children to pay attention to the environment, I think we can do a good job. Like, for instance, you don't have to sit and teach a toddler to read. If when you're taking your toddler, you know, with you on grocery shopping, right? You can just encourage your toddler to look at those print. We call it print awareness. That is A, that is B. That's the sign called stop. That's more than enough. That creates awareness in the child to look for print in the environment. That's the first step, right? Or play simple games such as, I Spy. You can turn it into a game, and children are all for playing games. And even if you don't want to play, they would come back to you, and that is learning, right? And be it, math, for example, we use math in our everyday life. It is not just a subject, right? From counting your newborn's toes to what is it, like measuring things in the kitchen, you're using math. When you include your child, you are drastically accelerating their cognitive development when it comes to math, right? So including your child in your everyday life, and encouraging your child to pay attention to the environment is more than enough. But in our program, right, like we have some 21-day challenge, and we have on the go challenge, 21-day on the go challenge, and that is the challenge that our parents really really enjoy, because it is simple things that we just forget, like as simple as the example that I just gave you, toddlers encouraging them to measure things with you when you're cooking. You teach that word, quarter, half, and full. That is a complex thing that you learn when you're in first grade with measurements. You learn about measurements in our first grade and second grade, but you can teach your toddler that. That's cognitive development right there. Understanding about how the world around. So memory games, again, simple memory games that you can play to build your working memory. Or like, for instance, Simon Says is a popular memory game, like jump 3 times or run and go sit on the sofa. You build that complexity. When you're giving that instruction, your child executes that action, right? Jump 3 times. So 3 times they have to jump. Or playing green light, red light. When you say red light, they have to stop that activity. Maybe they might be jumping. They have to stop. So again, you're building your baby's listening skills, working memory, by playing just simple games that parents can incorporate into their everyday life.
So it is when you are explaining me like what is cognitive development and how they can build it. So it looks like, again, like talking to kid about the environment around them, which is automatically letting child to develop cognitively and build their memory.
Yes.
That's what they are doing.
What I'm sharing with you is simple things that any parent can do. Any parent can incorporate. Like, there are advanced stuff as well, or particular activities that you can do. But is it that needed for every parent? The answer is maybe not. You might be a working mother. You might be completely busy with everything. You hardly have time. But still, if you learn those simple methods to talk to your child a certain way, to encourage your child to look at the environment a certain way, that is more than enough. You don't have to feel guilty that you're not doing that. I mean, you just need those little tools and techniques that you can learn, and you can do a very, very, very good job in not just supporting your child's cognitive development, but accelerating it too. In the market, you have like tons and tons of, activity ideas. You go on social media, right?
Yeah.
DIY activities, and you have to be spending 1 hour and 2 hours cutting cardboards and creating those, Pinterest perfect activities. And most of the times parents feel, hey, if I don't do that activity, maybe I'm missing out on things.
Yeah.
Right? That FOMO, I'm not doing enough for my child. Well, it's not so. You don't have to do those, Instagram worthy activities. If you can do these simple, if you can incorporate these simple things into your everyday life, you can do a way better job than most people who are doing those activities. The activities are great, but if you don't have that time, if you can just incorporate these few things, you can do a way better job.
So in a simpler term for the understanding of parents, if a parent is thinking aloud with a kid about any task they are involved in together, it is like more than sufficient for a child to develop their cognitive skills.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like the parent might be doing a lot of things subconsciously, but if they bring that consciousness while doing those things, that is sufficient for a kid.
Yeah. Yes. But again, in order for the parent to consciously bring things, I think that has to start with a foundational understanding of what are the different areas I need to look at. How is my child developing? What are the skills that I need to look at to develop in my child? That foundational understanding about a child and a child's brain, I think that has to that is a prerequisite, I guess, for parents.
What does that mean? I didn't understand when you say foundational understanding of brain or...
Okay, remember earlier we spoke about how it is important that parents need to be aware of the roles and responsibilities of parenting, understand how the brain grows, how the child grows, what are the different areas there. So when the parent has that understanding, right? That awareness, then it is very easy for them to incorporate those simple activities that they might already be doing in a conscious way as to support those different areas of development in their child. If not, they would be just interacting with their child as they go about the day. But that conscious awareness of making use of that interaction as a learning opportunity might be missed.
So it's a theoretical base they must be clear with, and then go with the application of that thing in their environment.
Sort of, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. But at the same time, I see that parents, especially like in India, when I see that they engage kids as like 2.5 years or 3 years into learning counting, alphabets, and even writing also. That is a part of motor skills, but still into that. Is it also a right thing to do from the parents' point of view?
Okay. Again, it depends on what perspective you have, right?
Okay.
So when it comes to learning, there are two different, let's broadly categorize parents into two different categories, okay? One is like they want the best for the child, so they go bizarre. They just want everything, introduce everything to the child. Nothing wrong with it, but again, intentions matter. What is that intention that you have? Is the foundation right? Right? The other group of parents, they just don't want to do anything at all because they think that learning is torture. Why introduce all these things to a child early? Let the child enjoy their childhood. Why, bother about all these things? Any which way the child is going to suffer once he or she starts school. So why make the child suffer right now? Let's talk about that, group B parents who think that learning is a torture. See, learning, most of the times, people who fit into that group, they confuse learning with education. Education begins when the child starts school, but learning begins at birth or even before that. And learning is how the brain grows. If there is no learning, there is no growth. There is no life. So learning has to happen. And it is important that you don't confuse learning with subject. Look at math or counting as a subject. If you look at it like that, right, then you would be like, what's the point? But if you look at it as math is all around us, we use math in our everyday life, right? We count our baby's fingers. That is counting. You can teach infant counting by simply counting their fingers and toes. You hardly need anything. That is a purposeful way of interacting with an infant and teaching fundamentals of math, right? So, and again, the other thing is for that group B parents, they've had those negative experiences in school. Learning was a torture. It was a pain. It was punishment. And so they think that learning is pain. No, learning is essential for a child's development. And the child has to learn many things. Most of the things that the child will learn in their entire life is learned during the first few years of life. Language, learning to walk, learning to breathe even is learned during the first 3 years. So learning is a beautiful thing, and babies are all for learning. They love learning. They want to learn. But it's just that we are just, confused based on our confused upbringing in school that we've had that negative association. Now let's talk about Group A, who want to teach their child to read. I think, again, introducing your child to this beautiful world around is a beautiful experience for both the parent and the child. But how do you approach it? Are you approaching it from a scarcity place where, somehow I need my child to be better than me? That is not the right approach, because I say this in my program, right? There is a dark side to parenting, right? Sometimes we want, even though we love a child, we'll take a bullet for a child. We want the child to be successful and happy. When we don't have our intentions right, chances are we'll do more damage than good in the process of doing good to the child. Meaning, we'll force a child to learn, we will, punish a child to learn, and in the process, we will create that negative association towards learning. And the child will not even enjoy learning in the first place. And there would be a rift in the relationship between the parent and the child, which is the foundation of everything. And how many parents do you, and I know, who force their child to learn, to be successful in life, because they value achievement and success more than connection. Right? We do more damage than good. But when your intentions are right, when you have a positive association to learning yourself, like you want to introduce your baby to this beautiful world, help them learn and reach their full potential in life, like whatever they are capable of, because every child is unique. Every child comes to the world, with their own unique gifts and talents. And if your primary intention is to figure out what your child is gifted in, and your intention is to make sure that you nurture your child's inner genius while also fostering that strong connection, you value that connection. I think teaching reading or math or anything is a beautiful thing, because your child, once they start school, would enjoy learning, would want to do more. It is not a competition. Look at life as a journey where we get to experience only once and reach, live life to its fullest potential. When your intention is that, I think you would make good choices. You will not force your child. You would not, teach your child to read from a place of, competition or that negative, force. So let me tell you this, okay? Teaching a baby to read or do math is very simple. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds can do mental math. There is a method behind magic, but you cannot teach a child the same way, the traditional way, how it is taught to you. You need to talk to a baby differently. You need to talk to children differently. You need to connect to them differently. And if you can know all these things are nothing actually. You can just make any child learn all these things very easily.
Here, the part of a positive parenting is respect the child's pace, include learning through experiences, rather not doing things at the abstract level, which might make meaning to you as a parent, but not to the kid.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Yes. And don't, like, the one thing that I see in parents these days is they take everything as a competition. Like, has to do this. My child want to do this. I want to get that certification, do this and that causes unnecessary pressure in the child as well as the parent. And when that pressure is there, when that stress is there, right, both parties do not enjoy what's happening there. Maybe the child would learn. Maybe the child would, do math. Maybe the child would, I don't know, have a high IQ. But what is the association that the child made? What are the habits that your child developed, right? Like, when the child grows up, would the child look forward to learning, or would the child run away from learning? And would the child just learn because it's been forced on them, or would the child readily sit down and say, you know what, I enjoy math. I love science. I think that should be our goal, and not making the child learn. Our goal should be, I want to create that positive association with learning, that my child falls in love with learning, so that my child becomes a lifelong learner. And I understand that learning is a beautiful thing. Learning is how my child's brain grows and develops, and learning is what is going to make my child reach their full potential in life. So that association part has to have more weightage than just simply learning numbers or ABCs or rhymes, right? That positive association should be our end goal.
So what are the common actions of parents which build the negative association between learning and...
Yeah, the one thing is forcing kids to learn. It is like you want your child to learn, so you just somehow, you tell yourself, I'll somehow make my child to learn. Do this. You cannot make any child do anything against their wish. We all know that. Big kids, they don't have a choice. They would whine, they would crib, and then still come and sit down. Especially little kids, they would not. They would be defiant. They'll roll on the floor and cry. They would whine. I mean, they'll drive you nuts. You cannot just use force. Again, understanding how the child naturally learns is in a playful way. But in order to do that, you need to first connect with the child. When the child feels safe and connected, the brain opens up for new learning. So what I usually tell my parents who I work with is, right? So before you could do any activity, you need to first, have positive affirmations, right? It literally primes the brain and gives your baby a hug. We say the 3P model, right, in our program. It's like positive affirmation, positive encouragement, and physical touch, right? So you use I love to learn, I love math. So you say that with your child. So it gets into their system. And the other two is you encourage your child. You tell them not just, you tell them how they were able to do the puzzle themselves. It helps them build that identity, that positive self-image about themselves. That, I have those skills. I can build those skills to do that. And thirdly, give them a hug, give them a high five. When you are them, relationships are at the center of everything we do. When you have that strong relationship with the parent, I feel the world is the limit. I mean, the what is the sky is the limit to what a child can do, because that connection is very important. When the connection is broken, you can try any method you want. You can get all the top toys in the world. It's of no use. Your child will not even touch. And even if your child touches, it's out of force. Your child will not enjoy. When your child does not enjoy it, after you move, your child will run away. And he'll go and tell a friend, you know what, my mom is a torture. I don't want to do that work. I hate math. Right? So
Yeah, so much 3P is like a nice trick for the parents to actually get into the positive parenting scenarios. I think I read this about in one of the Yale research where they were talking about the praise, how to praise the kid, and they also spoke about give encouragement to the kid, touch when you are encouraging the kid. Yeah, it's a powerful tool. Thank you for sharing that. Now I want to come to the social emotional development of a kid. So I think whether it is cognitive development, whether it is speech and language development, we have just spoken about. Somewhere I was seeing in our conversation that social emotional development element was coming out. Like it is connected somewhere. So I want to understand like how a parent, and also I would like you to touch the factor of connection which we are talking since starting. So how parents can build a positive social emotional environment for a kid and that positive connections with a kid.
yeah. So talking about social emotional development, right? That's one of the least what is it? That is like that nobody is that has the worst relationship with the parents and children. Like it's ignored. Hardly people talk about it. Everybody wants their child to have, a high intelligence, high IQ, and want to do well in school. That gets the top, what is it, the priority. Social and emotional development is least bothered. But research shows that IQ equates to 20% of success in life, just 20% of success in life, right? Your reading, your math, your everything, 20%. The rest is EQ. Your 80% of success in life comes from your EQ. So now it makes us question as to what are we doing right now, right? Now, at the end of the day, you can be a topper in class, or you can have, be in a successful job. But how satisfied are you in life? How well can you manage your own emotions? How can you make friendships? Because we are social beings. We are social animals, right? We cannot just do without making friends. How good are you in making relationships? How good are you in understanding others? How good are you in empathizing? It is not hardly taught in school. In home, it is ignored. So I think social and emotional development has to, we need to create that awareness so people start valuing it, like how they value academic success.
But what are
And
the
so,
sorry,
go ahead.
what are the few action steps which parents can take at a home to build that social emotional temperament in a kid?
Yes. So it all starts with, again, awareness, emotional awareness, right? Starting from when your baby is born, how many people intentionally want their child to learn the different emotions that they can experience, right? Like not many. We'll just, when a child cries, we'll just have them to stop crying. We just try to shut down that, feeling or that emotion. But all emotions are welcome. It is just that it is it is important that we teach them the skills needed to manage it. And especially little children, the brain what is it? They have some really cool features in the brain that makes them the fastest learners on the planet. But at the same time, their brain is underdeveloped, meaning those crucial areas of the brain, which are responsible for managing emotions, are not even developed yet. So, which means that they are literally handicapped when it comes to managing their emotions, right? So, no wonder you see those children, especially little children, throwing tantrums, whining and screaming and not listening. So, it is important that we teach them those tools, meaning it begins with awareness. Like every time a child is crying, you label it. You're feeling sad. You're crying because you're feeling sad. You're happy. You're angry. I see that you are angry. I see that you're mad. I see that you're frustrated. I see that you're disappointed. Giving them that word helps them understand what they're going through. That is one thing. Emotional awareness is one thing. Number two is taking deep breaths, giving them the tools. Like I was talking about the 3 Ps, right? Other than that, we also, before we do that activity, little children sit with their parents and take deep breaths. It might seem like, why is it all necessary for a toddler to sit and take deep breaths or watch their parents take deep breaths? See, the more often you do it, it gets into your system and it becomes automatic. So you're consciously picking those tools so you can work on autopilot and those tools serve you in the long run. So let's say that, there is a parent and a child, and this parent has taken deep breaths with their toddler or with their 5-year-old every time before they begin work. And there is a parent who's not done anything, who's not talking, who's not spoken to their child about the different feelings and emotions. When the child experiences tantrum, right? Tantrum is a natural part of development. It happens. You cannot avoid it, but you can minimize its intensity and duration, right? So if both these children experience tantrum, the chances of the child whose mom has spoken to them or modeled, the taking deep breaths, the child listening and calming down is much faster than the other child. And the frequency would also be less compared to the other child. So taking deep breaths is one tool. You can also, for older kids like 5 years and up or 4 years and up, you can also tell them how they are when they're experiencing, tantrums. Maybe they can give them a hug, to calm their body down. Those tools are something that you can give. Because apart from that, even ourselves, like take us, for example, when we are mad, if we don't have tools, we might make poor choices, right? And when adults make poor choices, it's okay. But when kids throw, we go and hit the child, right? We alert the child. And given the fact that we have a fully functioning brain, then that child does not have a fully functioning brain. But we expect them to, behave well, which is so unfair. But when we give them the tools when they are normal, like when they are not experiencing those big feelings and emotions, like taking deep breaths, giving them a hug, and doing role plays is like powerful, right? Having a toy and telling them a story about how the toy is so angry right now and having them come up with a solution. And you playing out as to how to help the toy calm down. I think that can teach the child to learn and execute what they've learned during the role play in real life. So role plays are powerful.
Right.
And yeah. So that is one. And so those are the few things that parents can do.
Yeah, those are very important things you have shared, like labeling, then deep breathe, then hug and role plays. Now, these are like important things. But as you said, the same thing is coming out again. If parent is aware of these tools, then only it can transfer to kids.
Yeah.
That's
The other thing I want to mention is children are like really good observers, right? They model from us. So if we want our children to be emotionally intelligent, I think we should be demonstrating it ourselves. So children are like, like monkey see, monkey do. If they're witnessing us losing our temper, if they see us, yelling and making poor choices, they would just do it. That's all they know, right? Their experience is limited. So it has to begin with us. When it comes to the emotional well-being, it has to begin with us. We have to first learn those techniques, because most of us growing up, I mean, how many of us, um, what we've modeled was anger and, you know, everything else. Like if we were hit, we were yelled at. That was so normal. So that is what we have in our brain. That is what we'll reach out to automatically. So if we want better outcome for our children, I think we need to alter that first in our head. Learn different ways to manage our emotions in a positive way, so we can model it for our children.
True. Very true. I think it becomes a very different domain for parents to work on themselves also first, then work on the kids. Yeah. But it is very much like I'm able to connect, like, what are you trying to say here? Thank you so much. And now let's come to the sensory domain, sensory development of a kid. Why it is important, first of all? Why sensory development is important?
Okay, again, I call it the 5 routes to the brain, or the pathways to the brain, because that is how we take in information to the brain, right? And especially for little children, when they're born, everything is new. They hardly have any information about the world. And if you look at the sensory development chart, like the first year of life, especially between 0 to 6, it is at its peak. They are highly sensitive to taking in information through their 5 senses than you and me. So it is important that we give them that stimulation, and stimulation meaning every stimulation, it helps the neurons of the brain light up and connect with each other. We call it the firing and wiring of neurons, right? So visual stimulation, again, visual stimulation, you can do activities. Children during the first few months or weeks can see only high contrast colors. So you have the black and white flashcards, but other than that, you can also show them in light, like near the window, so they get that light going in, and that really helps children to develop those pathways much faster. Auditory stimulation: what are the different music or the sounds that you play, or how often do you talk? Everything goes into sensory, your tactile stimulation, the different experiences that you give your baby to touch and experience. For older kids, it would be letting them get messy, actually. Sometimes, I'm not okay with kids getting messy, but they have to get messy in order to develop optimally in that area. So maybe I'm not suggesting that you let them, make a mess in the middle of the house, but have a separate time and place where you let the child be messy, play in the puddle, play in the sand. It is okay. Or water in the sand and, do their own type of clay. It's okay. So that experience has to happen. Touch and feel food and make a mess. Very, very important. For 3 years or 4 years, most parents, they feed their child, not even let them touch the food, because they are scared that they'll not eat, they'll make a mess. But that has to happen, because that is the path that they can learn. They have to go through that path to have a positive association with food and learn to eat well, right? So again, that sensory information is so important, because it helps that pathways to develop well, for them to take in information from the external world to their brain much faster.
Got it. So it's helping them to understand the world better around them.
Yes.
Got it. And what are the few things which parents can do to facilitate? I want to come back to the sensory one first. Okay. What are the common mistakes like parents do and not let their kid do something which can help them in their sensory development?
Yeah, let's talk about the tactile thing. Not letting the child get messy. Not letting your child jump in the potty. Not letting your child touch food because of the fear that your 3-year-old will throw food around and not eat enough. Be okay with that mess. I think, again, you cannot just say that in one sentence, because it requires the parent to have the tools and have the skills in place to, again, rewire their own mindset to be okay with the mess, to encourage the child to make a mess out of food while they're eating. We have a program to, like, the baby-led weaning thing. With our son, I did the traditional method. For the longest time, I You fed him purees. That's the traditional way. But with our daughter, I did baby-led weaning. And I wish I knew that earlier. You know, if you would have told me 8 years ago that infants can take the food and eat, complete the plate, I would have had a heart attack because I would have believed, right? Because that was my awareness back then. But as my awareness grew, I knew how it can benefit a child. It is not just about food, it's about building that relationship with food, building that positive association with food so the child can make better choices tomorrow. Because we are going to continue to eat for the rest of our lives, right? So it is important that during the first few years, we build that positive association and habits. And when it comes to sensory development, especially the tactile development, giving that opportunity for the child to make a mess out of food, to figure out what it is, how it feels against their skin. I think it's very, very important. That input is important because that is how you learn about food. That is how you make a relationship with food. That is how you become a person who can make positive choices around food.
Hmm. So it means stopping your kid to experiment and explore is like the biggest mistake they can make to stop their sensory development.
But again, you cannot blame parents for doing that, but because they're not aware of it. That is all they can do. No, every parent is trying the best to do with whatever they know, best to, sail through that day. Because it's not easy to parent little children, definitely not easy. But when you have the right awareness, right tools and support, I think we can make better choices.
Got it. Now I want to come back to the question I was going to ask about about the motor skills. Like what parents can do to develop those fine motor or gross motor skills in their kids in the early years.
Yeah, when it comes to motor development, right, the more opportunity you give your child to move their body, the earlier they're going to hit those milestones, and the stronger and the balance and coordination they're going to develop, right? Just like how it is for us too. If you're working out, right, we're going to have a healthy body, more strength and more agility, more coordination, more balance, and all of those things. So at each phase of the journey, it's going to be different. Like for newborns, a lot of tummy time, right? Because that is how they build its strength in their arms and back and neck. And that is the foundation. Tummy time is like very critical because when they build that strength is how they can reach the other milestones early, rolling over or sitting or walking, standing, and all of those things. And for our older kids, again, let them run and play. You have these monkey bars, right? The brachiation bars. Let them, hang on there because that's going to build their strength as well. Balance, bike, ball. Let them be outdoor and then go crazy, right? Because that's going to really help them. With their fine motor skills, again, you don't have to do anything fancy. There are tons of things online. If you go Google fine motor skill development, you would have thousands of activity ideas. But the simple things that you can do is you can let your child have food by themselves. That builds their fine motor skills, right? So that is something that you can start. Other than that, those little things that they can pick and eat, like for kids 18 months and up, the small, anything that's small, like maybe grapes that you cut in quarters and give your child, let them pick and eat. Mm-hmm. Or a paper that you might have, let them tear that paper into pieces. That's again building those finger muscles. You don't have to do anything fancy, but those simple things that you already have in the house, like paper, food, if you can give them opportunity to engage with it, do something about it, that can build their tiny, smaller muscle groups.
So, okay, got it. But now bringing everything together, all the domains we have just spoken about, as a parent, if I am working on all those aspects of my child development and all those domains to different activities which you have suggested or beyond that, then I can say that I am towards positive parenting and nurturing a genius in my kid. Can I say that?
Okay, nurturing genius, again, there are the other things that we need to look at. Understanding brain from a whole different perspective. In our program, we do whole brain acceleration. So understanding that there are two hemispheres of the brain, the right brain and the left brain, and it works differently, independently of each other. And we, again, at the end, we work on how we can integrate it together. And the other thing is talking about multiple intelligence. There are different facets that are not covered in school. So it is not just about the 6 domains as such, that's the foundation, but we understanding other methods as to how to provide that stimulation. What can you do? What are the different types of intelligence and how you can help your child scale up in that. So having that understanding and working on yourself first, tapping into that inner genius nurturer that's within you, it all starts with that. Because when you just do those 6, you take a holistic approach and foster all the 6 areas of development. But at the same time, what is even more critical is working on yourself, right? As a parent, if you're stressed, if you have a long day, right? Even if you work on the 6 major areas of development, when you come back burnt out and you're yelling at your child, chances are that's going to cause friction and affect the child's connection with you. So when you take a holistic approach and understand that everything in life is interconnected, and taking care of the 6 areas of development is foundational, but also understanding how your being as influences your child, working on yourself comes the priority, and also the having a deeper understanding of the brain, like using brain tools. I mean, because we have a short limited time here, I might not be able to share everything with you, but having an understanding of how the brain grows. We spoke about the 6 areas, right?
Yeah.
But of course, the brain is the master controller. It controls everything that your child does, how your child walks, talks, behaves, emotions and everything. But also having the understanding of the brain, so you can support brain development during the early years, I think. And then look at what your child is good at, right? We call it the golden triangle, because every child is unique. Every child is gifted. Like your strengths and abilities will be different from my strengths and abilities, right? So paying attention to what your child is good at, because when you find out what your child is good at, maybe good at singing, your child has this unique gift where your child solves problems, puts pieces of puzzles together. The other child might be good with language. The other child it can be anything. Figure out what your child is good at and then nurture it, because that is your child's genius.
Okay, just few questions. Number 1,
Yeah.
what is golden triangle? Could you clear?
Okay, the golden triangle is you observe, right? Identify and nurture. So you support all these areas of development, but you might not know what your child's brain favors, right? So, for instance, when you take cognitive development, you have all these reading, math, or memory. All of those things come under cognitive development. But you don't know what your child's brain favors, right? Because each of our brain will favor something more than the other. So it is important that parents observe it and identify what their child is good at. And instead of having a standardized thing, that is how we have in our schools, right? We have a standardized curriculum. We test our children based on a standardized test. That caters to the masses. That's for everybody, right? Like even IQ tests, it's for everybody. But when you identify what your child is good at and then nurture it, now there is no competition, because your child is good at something that is so unique to them, right? It stems from your child's strengths, preferences. It stems from your child's maybe innate nature. It is so unique to your child. So I think we as parents and teachers, we have to be looking at what is the child's strengths, what are the child's natural abilities, and when we build around it, now there is no competition. That is genius. And by the way, let me tell you, there is no scientific definition for the word genius because it's so complex, right? Because it is so subjective. Genius is pretending to you a person, an individual. So, to nurture genius, it is important we identify what the child's genius is and nurture it. Because the child might not be able to get the tools and resources needed from the world. But as a facilitator, as a guide, as the nurturer, I think we can bring everything needed for the child's brain to build itself and grow in that area. So that is the whole concept about
observation, identification, and nurturing. So when you use the words multiple intelligences and understanding of the brain, so that will be useful for parents during observation and identification stages.
Yes. Like, see, in order for the brain to pick something from the environment that it likes, there should be something that we present in the environment, right? So we take when I say holistic approach, present everything to the child at the beginning and I call the brain the genius architect, actually, because it literally builds itself based on how you interact with the environment. So when you present everything to the child, everything there is, it would choose what it favors. And what one child's brain favors might not be the same as their brother's brain favors. There would be difference in siblings too. And the chances, the whole idea is us to increase the chances of the child's brain favoring what we present. And how do we do that? Using our 3 Ps, right? Using affirmations, encouragement and physical touch. We're making those experiences so fun and enjoyable and, amazing that the brain cannot resist picking those things up and putting it in their brain to grow.
Okay. But here, I'm able to identify as a parent what my child's interests are or where they're going. But why, as a parent, it is important for me to know about multiple intelligences and how the brain works in building that observation and identification, if I can just see and tell what's happening. So how that understanding will bridge the gap?
Sure. So when you take the traditional way of looking at things, right, we just have the reading, writing, science, or whatnot. We just have limited things. And most of those things just fall into maybe logic and math or speech and language, let's say. There are other intelligence, such as naturalist intelligence, for example, right? It is the understanding of the world around us. It can be about plants. It can be about dinosaurs, extinct animals. It can be anything. And if you notice, some children might have this fascination toward dinosaurs. And we say, hey, why are you playing with dinosaurs? Go and read. And right, we don't see the reason to fuel that interest in the child, right? But if at all we do, who knows? You still can have that academic thing going on. But if the child is interested about, learning about extinct animals because their brain took a fascination for extinct animals, I think we can provide resources like books or documentaries for the child to watch. And because the child favors that, the brain favors it, the child is going to get really good at that particular topic. How it's going to help in the future, God knows. I mean, in this day and age, people make millions of dollars by, doing random things. Like, for example, the other day I was reading an article about this person who was a school dropout, maybe, but he was playing video games. His mom was like constantly yelling at him. But then in this day and age, unlike before, anything was possible, right? You have to know how to turn your interests, unique gifts into how you can serve people at large. And this guy, at the age of, I think, 17 or 18, he's made millions of dollars by, playing video, doing those, creating video games as such. I'm just giving us the simple example that came into my mind. So learning about that, he can be maybe an archaeologist or, it can be anything. You never know what life has in store for your child. But I think our job, not only to look at academics, but also to fuel the child's natural interest. A simple example is playing with cars. Your child, most boys might be interested in playing with cars. Now, how can you support your child? Well, you can let your child learn about the different models of car. maybe how the car is made. That is what, technology engineering, right? Build around that. And think out of the box, dare to fuel your child's interest. If your child is interested in cars, would be interested in how the cars are made. If you make it fun, your child will learn more. So there is an opportunity right there.
You intrigued me with the example, but I just want to know, like, what are the multiple intelligences here? Like, can we list them in some way?
Okay, so we have I spoke about the linguistic intelligence, which is how the child uses words. Some children might be really good with words, right? Like they can use words, they can use rhyming words. So that is one type of intelligence, how you use language, to process language, to use language, to write language, to read language. So that is one type of intelligence, and pretty much we cover that in our school, except for speaking, right? Communication, we are just like, you need to read, you need to write, mark up, write up. Other than that, again, an opportunity that has to be provided is how can you put yourself out there? Like, how can you share your thoughts and ideas? That's a type of intelligence. Public speaking is something that is considered to be the second, what is it? The most, public speaking is something that, scares, is more scary than death, right? For most of us, they'd rather die than go and speak in front of public. So again, linguistic intelligence, how can you help a child, develop that skills needed to talk in front of everybody, like to use the language. The other thing is logic and mathematics, something that our school is lean towards, right? How can we problem solve? How can we, use numbers efficiently? So that is one type of intelligence, and pretty much, our school covers it, but there are other facets that our school does not do. Like, how is math applicable in real life is something that our schools pretty much don't talk. So most of what we are learning in school, it is for our examination. It is not the application of real life. So that is the other type of intelligence. The other thing is spatial intelligence. How things are in space. Like, for instance, if you've seen those different colored blocks, that's a simple example that thing that parents can do to build this type of intelligence. So, how can I explain? So, the understanding of how things are in space, meaning like even the maps, some people, some of us might be really good with navigating, reading maps, navigating, understanding how places are. They might know the route really well, but others might struggle reading the map or going to a particular place. So that is a type of intelligence, spatial intelligence. The other is bodily kinesthetic, is how we move our body, how the physical development that we spoke about earlier. So that is a type of intelligence. Some children might not be well in school, but the others might do really, really well in the ground, right? They would run fast, they would play their soccer really, really well. So, but right now it is not about one intelligence or the other intelligence. It's about making sure that you give that opportunity for children to develop in all these different areas of intelligence that's out there. And musical intelligence, again, music is like a language, right? So some children might, let me give you a fun fact here, okay? When babies are born with this natural ability to perceive the frequency in sound. We call it perfect pitch, right? Which means that if I'm going to press a key on the keyboard, right? Babies under 6 months, this is according to Wisconsin University, research done there, they have an ability to identify what that frequency in pitch is, what that note is, without any reference, right? In a program, we do that with children too, with babies too. So, and this is something that even musicians might not have. That is an advanced cognitive ability that most of us, including you and me, are born with. But when they age, they lose that ability, right? So musical intelligence is something that, most of us have that ability to grow and develop in that area. But when that opportunity is not given, chances are it would be lost or it would be slowed. Children can still learn music and, theoretically, practically, and everything. But the whole thing is, when they are born, they're like a clean slate. They have this unlimited potential, and we speak about how babies are given this opportunity. They're in that phase where they're right brain dominant. You might be aware of it, right? They take in information much faster. They come with some really cool features in the brain that, like perfect pitch, for example, that I just shared with you. It is right there. When you give that stimulation, you help the child develop that skill that they can enjoy for the rest of his or her life.
Cool.
Right? So other than that, we have, interpersonal and intrapersonal. Again, interpersonal is understanding others, your social skills, right? And your emotional skills. Intrapersonal is understanding oneself. I think that is very, very important. Most of us, we go through our entire life not knowing who we are, why we behave that way, why we think that way, why we feel that way. So again, these types of intelligence are not even taught in school, right? We just focus on reading, our reading, writing, and math. But these things are definitely important. And the last one would be, again, the naturalist intelligence that I spoke about, understanding about the world. Some children will be fascinated with the mountains, but are we giving them opportunity to learn about what different mountains are there, how are they made? But if you tell all these like a story to a toddler or a preschooler, they'll be just fascinated. They'll be like at awe at what you're saying. They want to learn more. But if you're just making them sit down and do worksheets and, learn only write the ABCs within the line, color within the line, they're like, I'm going to run away. I don't want to do anything to do with learning. So, yeah.
So basically, in your program, if the parents are able to build the knowledge of multiple intelligences, so it is just giving them a channel to think beyond academics and be able to observe many other things which they might be doing subconsciously, but now at more aware and conscious level, they will be able to observe and identify things and then provide the necessary nurturing to the kids.
Yes. So academic achievement is a byproduct of whatever you're doing. By default, your child will do really well, excel in school. But the focus is placed on the child, on what we can do to make sure that the child grows and reaches their full potential in life, which means that we have to broaden, like go beyond, think out of the box, go beyond the classroom setting, and then encourage the child to grow and evolve in this whole, vast world. Right? There is so much out there. But we just limit them to just 5 textbooks a year. I mean, we're just limiting their learning. And if they're just learning for an examination, nothing wrong with it, with the system. But my point is, if they're just learning, if your focus is to just clear that exam, just get that mark, we are just forgetting about, many things in life. Like, how many children, maybe these days the awareness is increased, but back in those days, how many children read books outside the classroom? 5 books a year or 10 books a year is the max that most children would read. They did not read for leisure. They did not learn for leisure, right? It is just read, do well in exam, get that mark. But there is the whole wide world out there.
Yeah. Okay. Last few questions. So parenting, whatever efforts parents are making towards their kid, they will be able to show they will be able to see the results of it after, like, let's say 15 years, after 12 years. So it has a very long maturity period, the inputs given by parents and what are the outputs of it. So as a human being, I want to see output fast. I want to see where my efforts are leading to, or is it a waste? I'm thinking like that. So as a parent, what I can see quickly so that it motivates me further to learn, to be aware, and to invest more in my own development and even in my child development.
Sure. See, when it comes to parenting, as you said, it's the long-term game. Of course, we need to, everything that we do, every activity that we do, that something that I tell parents in our community, right? Play the long-term game. But it is important that we also see those results right now. So it motivates us to keep going, stay on that race. But results, meaning the primary results that you would see is the way children reciprocate to you. For instance, when you're just doing some random activity that you see on the internet, it is not the what you do, but how you do makes all the difference, right? So if you're just doing that activity and you feel that your child is not sitting there, you would give up. But when you know how to do a particular activity, like you bond well with your child, you make sure that your connection is strong, you're making it silly, you're making it playful, you're tuning into your child's natural strengths and abilities, and you're building activities around it. You're building your teaching and your learning around it. Your child is going to readily participate. I think that would blow a parent away and they want to continue in this journey. Because most of the like a common challenge that I see parents face is, my child is not interested in learning. And so immediately they jump into comparing their child with someone else. Oh, that child is doing, I saw that video, so I'm doing something bad or something wrong with me or my child. There's nothing wrong with any parent or the child. It's just that they don't know how to do things. They know what. They know what the child need to learn, what activities, because it's there on the internet. But how should you learn is something that if they learn, they would see results immediately. Maybe it might take like a couple of days or weeks because, so far if they have used force to make a child learn, the next time you're going to call your child, of course your child will deny, but you need to be persistent and determined in this journey of making learning fun for your child, of going on the journey of learning and growth and development, developing yourself, and also having the same vision for your child. And so after a couple of days, maybe your child will come and sit down for 5 minutes. And if you are successful, you've not yelled at your child, you've made it really fun for your child, you've used those affirmations, you've hugged your child is going to slowly, let go of that negative association, and this positive association is going to build. And after maybe 10 attempts, you would have replaced that negative association with positive association. And now the journey continues from there. And your child would really participate. I think that would, motivate parents more, because that is what I witness with the parents I work with.
But when you say about what and how, parents know what but not how. But there are parents who are so busy in their life, they are dependent on preschools and daycares for their child development. So that how parents can see the difference there in terms of their child development.
Okay, so see, end of the day, we don't have hours or 30 minutes or 45 minutes to spend with our children. In our community, right, we have mommy and me time. Like 5 minutes or 10 minutes is more than enough. It is not about how long you work out, but what workout you do during the time. We call it HIIT exercises, right? High intensity interval exercises. That matters. In the 5 minutes, what is that you're doing makes a huge difference. You can just watch some random videos online and come and try to do everything. It takes maybe 1 hour for you to do that, Instagram worthy activity that you do, the DIY activity to cut all these things and, make it presentable. But is that necessary? The answer is no. But if you know what to do within that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, connecting, bonding, and, doing that high intensity activities, I think that's more than enough. The other thing is, you should be separating activities and your everyday interactions with your child. When you know how to incorporate it into your everyday, interactions with your child, you can make use of that, time you take to drive your child to daycare. You can use that time to play a game. And there you go. You would have taught, if you do it for 10 days, your child will know how to blend 3-letter words. You wouldn't have even had a separate time sitting and doing activities with your child. All you need is the 10 minutes with your child until you drop your child off school. I think, in social media, right, that really misleads most parents. They think, if I don't do all these activities, I'm missing out on things. Well, that's not necessary. Each one of us are busy because we are living in households where 2 parents are working, right? It's not easy to take care of kids. And that too, we're living in a nuclear setup. There is no grandmother and grandfather to take care of our children. So when you come home, you don't have time to sit and play with your child for hours. You need to get the dinner cooking, right? You need to make sure that you prepare for the next day. You need to, maybe if you're learning, you need to learn. You need to do your work at home. And of course, these days we carry our laptops with us. So those days we come home and we sit and work. So it's not easy. But when you learn how you can incorporate those activities or those learning things into your interactions, you can do a great job and not worry about that guilt or am I doing enough thing at all.
Got it. So in short, like to nurture a genius as a parent, I need to invest my time, even if it is 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it will make a vast difference. But it is required from my end. I cannot be 100% dependent on preschools or daycares to take care of that aspect.
No, because see, the question is who cares for your child more? You. Who has the best interest at heart? You. Who loves your child more than anybody else in the world? It's you. So only you can do. And daycare and schools, they have so many kids to take care of. They cannot give that one-to-one attention that you give, right? So, and even that connection, your child might have a favorite teacher, but your connection means so much in not just in learning, but also in behavior, right? When you deposit that one-to-one time with your child, like 5 years or 6 years or even moving further, forget about teaching your child anything. Just sitting down, getting on the floor and playing with your child for 10 minutes is shown to drastically reduce misbehavior because your child is feeling connected with you. And that drives, positive behavior and learning and everything else. It takes on that, momentum, right? So that one-to-one time with the parent and the child, it's sacred, it's crucial. It is not an option, it is mandatory.
Got it.
Because why are we doing all these things? You're going for work for what? Like to provide for the child. You're going for work for what? To make sure that your child gets the best in life. But in order for your child to get all these things, you are the most important thing in your child's life. When you take out your time out of that equation, now you can bring all the money in the world or all the toys or anything. It is not going to benefit your child as much.
Got it. Thank you so much, for sharing so much about parenting, child development. I am inspired. It is rejuvenating the inspiration on the subject. Thank you for doing what are you doing. But before we leave, I would just like you to share, if somebody is inspired from this podcast and want to reach out to you and know about your program, how they can do that.
Sure. On social media, I'm available as Grace Riyas, Rayas. And you can reach out to me on my website, geniusnurturer.com.
Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for your time talking to me. That was last of my question. It was nice having you. Very wonderful conversation. I like the tips, new learnings. I have many questions to ask still, but I know time is limited. So thank you again for your time, Grace.
Thank you so much, Piyush. I mean, I enjoyed having this conversation with you and, getting your perspective as well. As you just summarized after everything, right? It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Welcome. How was this podcast for you? I have few takeaways from this podcast. Number one, the activities which I can do at home without spending a money for my kids' development and growth. Whether it is for their cognitive development, whether it is for their language development, for their motor or physical development, or social emotional development. Secondly, when the Grace says that social emotional skill is something which is the most ignored part in our families, it hit me hard. It feels like everything comes convergent on me. Yes, it is happening. And lastly, the power of awareness. As a parent, I need to be aware of current practices or the positive practices which I can do with my kids, which nurture them, which help them live the happy and fulfilled life. It is a two-way journey. It is not just about my kids' development, it is also about my own development as a parent too. I am also not skilled. I need to build that skills. I hope you also had some takeaways from this podcast. Do share your podcast cut. I hope you also had some takeaways from this podcast. Do share your takeaways with me in the comment box below. And don't forget to follow and subscribe Parents of India on YouTube and Instagram. This is your host Piyush signing off now. Bye.